is time for the hot topic of the hour. Congress set to certify the results of the 2024 election today as a massive winter storm bears down on D.C., and it's not expected to delay the proceedings. Lawmakers now putting focus on implementing the Trump agenda. The president-elect posted on Truth Social, urging Republicans to unite and send one powerful bill to his desk as soon as possible, which includes border security, energy policy, tax cuts, and no tax on tips. House Speaker Mike Johnson broke the news with me yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures.
President Trump is going to prefer, as he likes to say, one big, beautiful bill. He can put it all together, one big up or down vote, which can save the country, quite literally, because there are so many elements to it.
So are you expecting to raise or eliminate the debt ceiling as part of that big bill?
I think we're going to have to do it in that bill. You do it in reconciliation. You can do it just with the Republican Party. So we're targeting a vote in the House, it may be in the first week of April.
So you're talking about the first 100 days?
In a worst-case scenario, Memorial Day.
But South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham telling me this plan is concerning him. He's not sure if it'll work. Watch this.
If we don't put border first and get it done, it's going to be a nightmare for our national security. To the tax cut wing of the party, I am with you, but if you hold border security hostage to get tax cuts, you're playing Russian roulette with our national security. I'm saying that as we negotiate tax cuts, there are tax cutting people, and I'm one of them, that won't vote for border until they get all their taxes. I'm not a big fan of the SALT deduction. I live in South Carolina where we have low taxes. Why should people in South Carolina subsidize California and New York?
So this is the battle as lawmakers try to understand and figure out how to implement President Trump's agenda. Liz Peek, you heard what he just said about the SALT deduction. That's what's going on right now. The members of Congress who want the SALT deduction cap lifted are pushing back, saying, look, if SALT is not in there, I don't know if you have my vote on border. This is going to be a big issue for the president.
Look, Maria, first of all, they need to get one big bill done. There has never been a Congress that passed two reconciliation bills.
Yeah.
It's too complicated. Look, the GOP has to get on board. That's the bottom line here. They have to be unified. They have to push the people's agenda and Trump's agenda. A majority of the country voted for Donald Trump, and they knew what he wanted to do. He wants to cut taxes. He made a lot of promises on the campaign trail on taxes. And to Lindsey Graham's point about national security, I would say national security starts and ends with the economy. If we do not reenact these tax cuts, we have a massive cliff at the end of this year, and the economy will go into recession. Yes, the border is extremely important. All Republicans are on board with the border. That is not, in my view, terribly controversial, and they should be on board with tax cuts as well. Let's get this done.
I was really struck by these new issues that lawmakers are dealing with. It's going to be real complicated to get one big, beautiful bill the way President Trump wants it. There's a lot in here, and I've already spoken with a couple of senators over the weekend, Liz, who say there's no way I am voting to raise the debt limit or eliminate the debt ceiling. And that's another thing that President Trump wants in there. So this is what's going on. Senators are trying to figure out how they're going to execute the agenda. But if you've got all this stuff in there, you're going to lose some members.
Yeah, you may lose some members, but Maria, all of these Republicans come from districts, I would say all of them, that voted for Donald Trump. So they need to get their heads in the right place.
Yeah.
SALT is a legitimately controversial issue. I get that. But none of this other stuff is. Raising the debt limit is a stupid thing to get stuck on. We've seen this before. This is a non-event. I agree with Trump. I think he has talked about just getting rid of it. It is an artificial barrier to progress. Don't let it be that.
Yeah. Well, the timeline that Mike Johnson gave us yesterday is to get a vote in the House by the end of April, try to get it on the president's desk sometime in May, and perhaps get it passed by Memorial Day. Rebecca, even though we're talking about 6 months, that is a very tight schedule to get all of this stuff implemented. And at some point, markets are going to start deciding whether or not, pushing tax cuts all the way to the end of the year is a game changer for buying stocks.
Yeah, Maria, and I think that the longer that it's delayed, the longer that we have such derision in the GOP side of the House, it's a problem because state and local tax deduction is what we're talking about on the Schedule A itemization. And it's not fair to, the senator's point, it's not fair for us to subsidize, if you live in Florida, a non-tax state, to subsidize New York and California's rich multimillionaires that can then deduct their state and local taxes off of their federal tax bill.
So the other big story we're working on this morning is President Biden's decision to block the Japanese company Nippon Steel from acquiring U.S. steel. This is facing criticism. Biden writes this: the deal, quote, would place one of America's largest steel producers under foreign control and create risk for our national security and our critical supply chains. Both companies are condemning Biden's decision as unlawful. They released a joint statement saying the president's statement and order do not present any credible evidence of a national security issue, making clear this was a political decision. We're left with no choice but to take all appropriate action to protect our legal rights. Nippon Steel may sue the U.S. government over the blocked acquisition. Japan's prime minister is asking Washington to explain clearly why the deal presents a national security concern. And Fox Business's Lydia Hu spoke with the CEO of U.S. Steel in a Fox Business exclusive. Watch this.
A couple months ago, you also said you were focused on the deal. I think you seemed confident the deal would close too. And yet President Biden just blocked it. What went wrong?
We did everything right as a company with Nippon. We did everything right. The government failed us. They failed because they didn't follow the process. And we're going to right that wrong. They failed our workers. They failed our communities. They failed our country. They failed our best ally in Asia, and they've emboldened China by not following the rule of law.
Liz, by the way, President Trump also deems this a national security threat.
Yeah, and I think both of them are wrong, Maria. This is a combination that would make our industry stronger. This is an incredibly important Asian ally that we're counting on to help push back against China. Everything about this decision is cheesy politically, and I think just plain wrong. Born out of a time during the campaign when everybody was going after union votes. But this is the wrong decision.
Well, this has a lot of implications on trade. Dumping steel in the U.S. is going to spark Trump's behavior on trade. We're going to zero in on this coming up in the show, and we'll have more of Lydia's interview. Stay with us. We'll be right back. You're watching Mornings with Maria, live on Fox Business. Welcome back. Good Monday morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. I'm Maria Bartiromo, and it is Monday, January 6th. It is 7 a.m. on the button on the East Coast. Time for the hot topic of the hour. Congress is set to certify the results of the 2024 election today at 1 p.m. Eastern. Even as a massive winter storm bears down on D.C., it's not expected to delay the proceedings. Lawmakers are putting the focus on implementing the Trump agenda. The president-elect posted on Truth Social last night, urging Republicans to unite and send one powerful bill to his desk as soon as possible, which includes border security, energy policy, tax cuts, and no tax on tips. House Speaker Mike Johnson broke the news with me yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures, which also included the debt ceiling in the new bill. Watch.
President Trump is going to prefer, as he likes to say, one big, beautiful bill. He can put it all together, one big up or down vote, which can save the country, quite literally, because there are so many elements to it.
So are you expecting to raise or eliminate the debt ceiling as part of that big bill?
I think we're going to have to do it in that bill. You do it in reconciliation. You can do it just with the Republican Party. So we're targeting a vote in the House, it may be in the first week of April.
So you're talking about the first 100 days?
In a worst-case scenario, Memorial Day.
So the worst-case scenario, he said there, was having a bill out by Memorial Day. But, of course, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham has been working on two bills. One focused on the border and energy permitting early on and tax cuts later on in the year. He says this idea of doing one plan is concerning. Watch.
If we don't put border first and get it done, it's going to be a nightmare for our national security. To the tax cut wing of the party, I am with you, but if you hold border security hostage to get tax cuts, you're playing Russian roulette with our national security. I'm saying that as we negotiate tax cuts, there are tax cutting people, and I'm one of them, that won't vote for border until they get all their taxes. I'm not a big fan of the SALT deduction. I live in South Carolina where we have low taxes. Why should people in South Carolina subsidize California and New York?
Liz Peek, this is the conversation underway right now in Washington among lawmakers. How are they going to get all the way on the same page? Trump is coming into office in 2 weeks, and he wants a bill which includes all of his priorities on his desk in the coming months.
Well, I think someone mentioned earlier, a lot of the border protections and strengthening can happen via executive decision. That's what, by the way, an executive order, that's what Trump did the first time around.
And it maybe, but Liz, they need $100 billion. Okay? Well, and they can't do that. They can't get money through executive order. They need $100 billion to do the deportations, to create beds and facilities to hold people while they're deporting them. So that's what the crux is here. They need the $100 billion and they need congressional approval for it.
Yes, but if Johnson's right, Maria, and they can get all of this under one in one bill and get that done in the first 100 days, then I don't see why wait on the tax issues. I mean, I think the tax issues are much thornier than the border.
Yeah,
Certainly Republicans are unified on the border issues. So let's get done all of this in one. The reason Trump wants this, his advisors know it is much harder to do two bills than to do one. So, and by the way, Lindsey Graham may be have issues on taxes. We do have more of a majority in the Senate. We could lose one or two senators, Republican senators, and still get this done. We have no flexibility in the House whatsoever. So they really have to, I think, take their lead a little bit more from the House.
Yeah, and that's the issue. They cannot lose anybody, and they have such a slim majority. The last time two reconciliation packages were done was under Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House, and they were able to get it done, but they had a much better majority, Rebecca. A bigger majority when Newt was the Speaker.
Yeah, Marianne, I think that the American public really is looking for massive change from how the sausage is made. And this first pass that we're getting, which is like the sausage is so full of stuff that we can't even get anything actually done, especially when it comes to not so much the border, but the tax policy that Trump, obviously talked about continuing and renewing. It's a big problem. I mean, people do not want to see Trump come in and have a repeat of his first administration, which was completely hamstrung.
Yeah. By the way, there's another story in the Washington Post that Trump aides are ready to narrow down his tariff plans. So that actually is another, it's a positive. They're talking about just the critical items to tariff. But another story we're watching this morning also could sort of touch trade, and that is Nippon Steel. Nippon Steel may sue the U.S. government now over President Biden blocking its acquisition of U.S. Steel. Biden said that the deal would, quote, place one of America's largest steel producers under foreign control and create risk for our national security and critical supply chains. Japan's prime minister is getting involved, asking Washington to explain clearly why this deal presents a national security concern. Fox Business's Lydia Hu spoke with the CEO of U.S. Steel in a Fox Business exclusive. Watch this.
A couple months ago, you also said you were focused on the deal. I think you seemed confident the deal would close too. And yet President Biden just blocked it. What went wrong?
We did everything right as a company with Nippon. We did everything right. The government failed us. They failed because they didn't follow the process. And we're going to right that wrong. They failed our workers. They failed our communities. They failed our country. They failed our best ally in Asia, and they've emboldened China by not following the rule of law.
You know, Liz, I do see national security issues because steel is used in the military. Steel is used throughout the industrial economy, Liz. And President Trump was also against this deal, by the way. He also said you got to block it.
Yeah, and I think both Biden and Trump are wrong on this, Maria. What is Nippon Steel going to do? Take the factories out of the United States? No, that's not going to happen. In fact, just the opposite. They are willing to put $1 billion into resuscitating plants that are old, that are not competitive. This will strengthen U.S. steel producing. Forget whose name is at the top of the leaderboard. We're talking about companies investing in America, and that's what presumably Donald Trump is all about. And I agree with the U.S. Steel CEO. This is a real slap in the face of Japan, which is beginning to produce weapons and be helpful in confronting China. That's a huge change over the last 20 years. So we need to encourage that relationship, and we need to encourage the strengthening of our steel producing industry.
What do you think, Rebecca?
I have a little bit of a different take than Liz. I do think back to the 2020 pandemic, Maria, and I think about all of the beholding that we were doing to China for our medical, ingredients because of their supply chain there. So, this is the third largest U.S. steel producer in the United States, mostly manufacturing aluminum sheets, Maria, for cars and construction and those kinds of things. So I really feel like, and even though Japan is a strong ally and we really consider them, a super loyal partner since World War II after, it's really still, Maria, to your point, like we cannot outsource. This is a way for a foreign country to come in and it would bypass the Trump tariffs. I'm not saying that I am protectionist or not. I'm just saying that we have to start thinking about how much of our supply chain is controlled outside of our own country.
Mm-hmm. And this is something Wilbur Ross used to complain about a lot, obviously major steel investor there. We're going to keep looking at that story, and we will let you know what happens here. We're just getting... Welcome back. It's time now for the Word on Wall Street. Top investors watching your money. Joining me now is Morgan Stanley Managing Director and Private Wealth Advisor, Kathy Entwistle. Also with us is Rebecca Walser. Thank you so much for being here, ladies. Great to see you both. Futures this morning are trading higher. Take a look at stocks right now as we kick off the first full week in the new year. Dow Industrial's up 133. The NASDAQ is up 207. I think it has something to do with the agenda, the Trump agenda, and what we're hearing on Trump's tariff plans. House Speaker Mike Johnson told me yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures that he wants one reconciliation bill to Trump's desk by the end of April. Kathy, how important are these tax cuts in this bill for investors? The debate that lawmakers are having right now over one bill, which includes the tax cuts and the border money, as well as potentially the debt ceiling getting raised, or two bills, which is what Senator Lindsey Graham has been working on.
Good morning, Maria. Thanks for having me on again. Happy to be here. I do think it's extremely important. We've seen the tax cuts that Trump put into place back in 2017, and they had a very positive impact on the general public investors and the corporations that benefited from that. And I would expect that to be a benefit as well, again, very clearly.
Well, look, the Washington Post, Kathy, is reporting this story. President-elect aides are looking at universal import duties, but only on certain sectors. Among first big moves of the presidency, the Washington Post reports that the tariff plans would be applied to every country, but only cover critical imports. 3 people with the matter told the Post a key shift from his plans during the 24 campaign. He's just focusing, they're saying, on these certain sectors. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think what he's doing is he's prioritizing the areas that he believes that we can have competitive nature in, and also be able to give that business to U.S. companies. And I think that makes sense, too. It's a matter of drawing a line and saying that we're not going to overpay. We're not going to do business with people in that respect.
All right, we've got breaking news right now on this Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel deal. They will file a joint lawsuit against the U.S. government. Lydia Hu is on the story right now. Lydia.
Good morning there, Maria. This breaking just moments ago. Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel announcing just this morning they are filing a pair of lawsuits against President Joe Biden and the CFIUS committee, as well as U.S. Steel's competitor Cleveland-Cliffs, its CEO, and the president of the major labor union, United Steelworkers, aiming to get a new CFIUS review process under the Trump administration. And Maria, I had a chance to sit down with the CEO of U.S. Steel, Dave Burritt, for his first interview since President Biden blocked the Nippon's acquisition of U.S. Steel in a move just last week, to get his remarks on this lawsuit and all of the company's moves. Come here. Watch here.
We did everything right as a company with Nippon. We did everything right. The government failed us. They failed because they didn't follow the process. And we're going to right that wrong. They failed our workers. They failed our communities. They failed our country. They failed our best ally in Asia, and they've emboldened China by not following the rule of law. CFIUS is supposed to be robust and confidential, and we find it was neither robust nor confidential. And unfortunately, the President of the United States shamefully tainted the CFIUS process from the very beginning. We respected the process, and that was a mistake that we made.
You called Biden's actions shameful and corrupt. You said this is evidence of his political corruption. Why? Political corruption in what way? Why would he do this?
Well, apparently, he felt that he owed the union boss. He owed the union boss a favor in exchange for an endorsement. That's the only thing we could think of. He has a long history of working with the unions, and he wanted to support them, even though this was wrong for our country and wrong for our workers.
U.S. Steel and Nippon are exploring legal rights, and you are suing. Tell me about that.
Well, you know, at U.S. Steel, we live by a code of conduct. We take it very, very seriously. In fact, safety is first with us. We invented that term, I think it was back in 1908. And what we say with safety is, if you see something, say something, and do something. And so just like with legal issues, we've seen corruption, and we're going to say something loudly, and we're going to do something with litigation to right this wrong so that our workers and our communities and our country will benefit. We need to fix this. When we see something that is egregious, like in this case, clearly the process was tainted. And clearly, from the very beginning, when he made his first statement about this deal, he has been unwavering, and he's cost us, U.S. Steel, and cost our communities a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money, because he did not follow the rule of law. This thing should have closed in the second quarter. Again, it strengthens national security.
We'll soon have our new president, President-elect Trump. Have you been in touch with his transition team or with President-elect Trump?
No, I have not. We look forward to that opportunity. He's not the president yet, but I sat with him on March 1st, 2018, when we put in the tariffs at that point in time. I know he cares deeply about the workers, and I believe he's going to right this wrong. He will understand the facts of the situation, and he's a very bright guy, and he will make sure that we follow the rule of law. He's had a little bit of experience being attacked by this administration, so he knows, I'm sure, what we're going through, too.
The union, the United Steelworkers, have been among the loudest critics of this deal.
Well, let me just interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt, but the international union has been.
Yes.
The workers, no. I'd invite anyone to talk with the workers and get the truth, how they feel about this deal, because the international hasn't had any dialogue with the workers. They don't understand this deal.
And how do you move forward working with the union?
Well, we have a great relationship with the local union. The international union is challenged because we haven't had a great relationship with them, but the work gets done at the plants. And the people at the plants understand what needs to be done, and they understand this is a great deal.
And you have a collective bargaining agreement that's coming up for renegotiation middle of 2026. And so this will certainly be an issue that I'm sure comes up and is part of the discussion.
I think there's going to have to be some healing.
Yes, and Maria, as Mr. Burrett put it, some healing will now have to come as Nippon and U.S. Steel say that they are filing a pair of lawsuits aimed at, among the defendants, the president of the United Steelworkers, that major labor union. We are in the process of reaching out to the union and Cleveland-Cliffs, U.S. Steel's competitor, as well as the DOJ, to get comment on all of this. But sources that are familiar with the company's thinking believe that if they're able to get a new CFIUS review process under the Trump administration, that this deal would be approved. Nippon would be cleared to acquire U.S. Steel. So that is what they are aiming for. I should mention that, as we know, President-elect Trump has also been clear about his opposition and concern about Nippon's proposed acquisition as well. So it is not clear whether that is the path forward. But U.S. Steel is telling me they are confident that President-elect Trump will look at the merits of the deal and not the politics of the matter, and they hope that he'll be open to considering this deal moving forward. And finally, Maria, quickly, I did ask Mr. Burrett there, the CEO, about the future of U.S. Steel without an investment of Nippon. You may remember he said without Nippon's investment, jobs here in western Pennsylvania might have to be moved elsewhere to other plants that are operating more efficiently for U.S. Steel. He says without Nippon at this moment, that's still a possibility moving into the future. So a lot on the line here. Maria, back to you.
Well, I can tell you for sure that I spoke with President Trump about this deal, and he told me he would block it. So I don't know, if that changed, and we'll see if the CEO can have that conversation with him. But President Trump, I think, is where President Biden is on this. Lydia, great reporting. Thank you. Lydia who this morning in Pennsylvania. Stay with us. We'll be right back. I mean, this documentary that Amazon is licensing with Melania Trump is going to be the story of her life, Liz, and it's an incredible story. She comes from Slovenia to America to become a model. She gets some modeling gigs. She starts doing well, becomes an entrepreneur, meets Donald Trump, eventually becomes the first lady of the greatest country in the world. Now twice. Pretty incredible story.
It is an incredible story. And how nice is it, Maria, to see Melania Trump finally getting some nice press coverage. The fact that Vogue and the New York Times style section dismissed her. I remember when Donald Trump was first elected in 2016, dismissed her as a real heartbreak for the American design industry, who really had looked forward to dressing Hillary Clinton. Get your head around that for a moment. But look, she has been ridiculed and belittled and demeaned because she's an immigrant. I mean, it's been horrifying. This is another testament to the fact that Donald Trump, after 8 years in the public eye, has won the trust and approval of the American people, and the legacy media is nowhere to be seen on this.
Yeah, Amazon was smart to get that documentary for sure. All right, Jerry, thanks for that. Stay with us. We'll be right back with a big hour. Welcome back. Good Monday morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. I'm Maria Bartiromo, and I hope you're having a good Monday morning. It is Monday, January 6th. It is 8:01 on the East Coast. We kick this hour off with the hot topic of the hour. Congress set to certify the results of the 2024 election today at 1 p.m. Eastern, despite a massive winter storm bearing down on Washington, D.C. So far, it is not expected to delay the proceedings. Lawmakers are now focused on executing the Trump agenda, and the House and Senate are split on how to do it. The president-elect posting this on Truth Social, urging Republicans to unite and send one powerful bill to his desk as soon as possible. That bill will include border security, energy policy, tax cuts, and potentially a rise in the debt limit. House Speaker Mike Johnson broke all the news yesterday with me on Sunday Morning Futures.
I think at the end of the day, President Trump is going to prefer, as he likes to say, one big, beautiful bill. And there's a lot of merit to that, because we can put it all together, one big up or down vote, which can save the country, quite literally, because there are so many elements to it. And it'll give us a little bit more time to negotiate that and get it right. We made a lot of campaign promises. President Trump did as well. And reconciliation is the way to get it done. Why? Because you avoid a 60-vote threshold in the Senate.
So are you expecting to raise or eliminate the debt ceiling as part of that big bill?
I think we're going to have to do it in that bill. And the reason for that, Maria, is that we won't have to negotiate with Chuck Schumer and the Democrats on that. If you do it in reconciliation, you can do it just with the Republican parties.
Would you have that on the president's desk by May?
Certainly by May, yes. In fact, we're targeting a vote in the House maybe in the first week of April.
So you're talking about the first 100 days?
In a worst-case scenario, Memorial Day.
You're talking
we
about
are. That's the whole idea.
Yeah, and the worst case you say will be Memorial Day.
That's right. That's right.
But the House and Senate are not on the same page. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham told me this plan is concerning. He wants 2 reconciliation packages with taxes at the end of the year. Watch this.
If we don't put border first and get it done, it's going to be a nightmare for our national security. To the tax cut wing of the party, I am with you. But if you hold border security hostage to get tax cuts, you're playing Russian roulette with our national security. I'm saying that as we negotiate tax cuts, there are tax cutting people, and I'm one of them, that won't vote for border until they get all their taxes. I'm not a big fan of the SALT deduction. I live in South Carolina where we have low taxes. Why should people in South Carolina subsidize California and New York?
And now we have the rub, and whether or not they're going to be able to get over this and get Trump's agenda executed. Les, if you've got New York and California lawmakers holding Congress hostage to the SALT deduction, you're going to have battle after battle in the coming months.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Maria, there's going to have to be a pretty serious compromise here. And the compromise will clearly be raising the SALT limit, which obviously was done the last time around. The last time we had a change to that after being eliminated basically altogether under the Trump tax cuts. And by the way, Lindsey Graham, you know, he lives in South Carolina, which went for Trump by 18 points. I think, again, all these legislators have to kind of remember what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to do is come together as a Republican Party and pass an agenda that the American public is extremely excited about. So letting it get hung up on any issue, whether it's SALT or anything else, that is unacceptable. And we saw, by the way, Trump's influence when they made Mike Johnson Speaker of the House. He is the guy. He is running the show. Everybody needs to get in line.
Well, that's right, because you actually had 3 congressmen who voted for somebody else.
Yep.
And they could not afford to lose more than 1 vote. President Trump got involved. He spoke with Keith Self and also one other, Ralph Norman. And by the end of that phone call, both of them changed their vote to Mike Johnson. Tom Massey was the only one who voted for somebody else, and that's about the only vote that they can lose, 1 vote, Rebecca. So that in and of itself tells you that you're going to have lots of battles. And the more stuff you add to this, as Trump calls it, one big, beautiful bill, the harder it will be, because there are certain senators who say, I can't, in my conscience, raise the debt limit, $36 trillion in debt, I'm not going to do it. And Trump wants that in there, too. So President Trump is going to have his hands full dealing with lawmakers who have all different priorities. Rebecca.
Yes, Maria. And, you know, it makes my stomach turn to hear the debt limit being brought up again, because I have massive issues with the fact that our 10-year yield now has been at the 4.6. It's back down now in the 4.5 range. But, Maria, the bond market is telling us the risk of the U.S. dollar and continuing to print just money is not going to work this time. So we have to look at this. The SALT deduction alone is about $1.2 trillion over 10 years. Just taking that down alone is $1.2 trillion over 10 years.
Well, I think this is a really good point that you make. And Bill Hagerty is going to join me in a few minutes, the senator from Tennessee, who is also concerned about the dollar. But I think one of the reasons this market is rallying this morning is this story out of the Washington Post as well, that President Trump's aides are reportedly looking at scaling back his tariff plans. The Post says the team is moving away from imposing universal tariffs on everything imported into the United States, and instead will place tariffs only on certain sectors considered critical to national economic security, Les. This is a big deal.
It is a big deal. But Maria, how obvious was this? The media,
Totally obvious.
the
Totally
media
obvious.
took this tariff story and went crazy about, oh
You're
my
absolutely
gosh,
right.
everything, the price of everything is going to go through the ceiling. Inflation's coming
Great
back.
point.
If you do blanket tariffs, you give up totally the strategic opportunities of using tariffs for all kinds of reasons, which is what Trump did very successfully in the first 4 years. I mean, I think this is great. I'm glad they've said this. It seems to me it was always the obvious outcome.
Totally agree with you. All right, let's slip in a short break. When we come back, we are getting into the agenda. We've got a Fox Business exclusive.